Hi, it's Jack from the MMA Island podcast. Before this video gets started, before you listen to the podcast, big shout out to our sponsors, BetUS. If you are going to place a bet on MMA, basically any sport, do it through them. Their program is so great. They have everything that you would need to make a bet, to look at the bet, the props, everything there. If you want to do a parlay, it's there. Please go through BetUS. The link is in our description, in our bio. It'll be on Instagram. You can find it everywhere. BetUS, big shout out to our sponsor.
I'm Jack Kennedy, and they hit a lot harder in my opinion too.
What is up, everybody? My name is Keelan McNamara, and everyone's got a plan until they get hit with my views.
I am Hunter Boss. He just wanted to go to the distance by the looks of it, but he couldn't even do that.
And this is the MMA Island podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the MMA Island podcast. I am Jack Kennedy alongside Keelan McNamara and Hunter Boss. A great episode for you today. We're reviewing Gastelum versus Cannonier, talking about what the KO of the year is so far after we just witnessed a spinning wheel kick knockout, which was unbelievable, and a fight that we want to see booked very soon, something that we're looking forward to seeing. All in this episode. Let's get it going. Gastelum, Cannonier. Hunter, what are your thoughts on this fight?
This fight was fantastic from start to finish. You know, this wasn't a fight where any fighter was just dominating each round. Even when one fighter got a knockdown punch, the other fighter would come back and they would ensue their will upon them. Like in the third round, I believe it was, when Kelvin Gastelum got knocked down, and it looked like it was a knockout punch for sure. It would have knocked out about anyone else. Kelvin Gastelum looked like he just woke up from it immediately, spun around and held on to Jared Cannonier, and then eventually started fighting back in the round and got some really good strikes in. This was a fight where, on paper, it looks like Jared Cannonier won the fight like indecisively. But when you really dive in deep with the rounds and watching it consistently, it was a close fight between the two. Both fighters landed great shots. There wasn't really a dull moment in the fight. It was a really good fight night, just to say. There was great fights, not in just the main event, but even in the preliminaries. Fantastic all around. And I'm happy I got to watch it.
Yeah, this was a great fight. I have to admit, I got to give Kelvin Gastelum a lot of credit because he stuck in a lot tougher than I thought he would. Whenever Cannonier landed that shot, and what was it, the third round?
Third or fourth?
Yeah,
Third, I think it was
kind of both.
Yeah, he did land down two knockdown punches, so.
Yeah, whenever he landed those shots, I mean, those shots would have knocked out a Rhino. And I thought Gastelum was out of it because it would have put anybody else out. But massive credit to Gastelum. He got back up, got Cannonier to the fence, and used that veteran experience to recover and get back into the fights. I have to admit, I did think it would be more dominant for Cannonier. I think physically, every physical attribute goes to him. Reach went to him, height went to him, and power unquestionably went to him. So I felt he could have been a little bit more confident in his own power. I think there were times where he could have pushed the pace just a little bit more to try and put Gastelum in trouble. But credit to Kelvin Gastelum, he stuck in there. I didn't think he'd make it to the end, and he put himself enough in the conversation that he possibly could have won the decision. But for my money, Jared Cannonier won. Very good name on his resume, very good name on his hit list. And it's on to the top 5 now for Jared Cannonier.
Oh, yeah. Hey, you guys are absolutely right. I mean, this fight was very, very, very close. People saying, I mean, I didn't see anyone saying it was a robbery, which is actually rare because you'll have fights that are close and people are saying it's a robbery either way, but I didn't see anything for this fight. Anybody saying it was robbery. Personally, I did score it for Cannonier, although I do understand the Kelvin Gastelum argument. But when it comes down and a fight is that close, you have to kind of lean on the statistics and look at the significant strikes and the total strikes landed. And I think round 1 was probably the closest and the decider for that. And in that round, Cannonier was just a little bit more active, and that's why I gave him the win. I would say also the rounds that Cannonier won, they were more dominant than the rounds that Kelvin Gastelum won. Not that they weren't clear rounds, but Jared Cannonier knocked him down basically twice. So yeah, but I mean, phenomenal fight. It was what you want. We've kind of been let down recently in middleweight division main event headliners with both Kevin Holland fights with Marvin Vettori and Derek Brunson, but these guys went out there and absolutely delivered like we thought they would. Cannonier, this is a big moment for him. There's a lot of pressure riding on this because realistically, he's supposed to beat Kelvin Gastelum with his ranking and where he's at. Kelvin Gastelum is as tough as they get. Just went 5 full rounds with Robert Whitaker. And I mean, yes, he got outclassed, but everybody gets outclassed against Robert Whitaker unless you're Israel Adesanya. And he really hung with them. Cannonier did great, amazing takedown defense, only got taken down one time, popped right back up. And that was really the key. I think after that, just like what you said, Keelan, his physical presence is so big in there. Kelvin Gastelum is going to struggle with that. And that's why I think overall Cannonier won the fight, just because of his physical presence and just the power that he possesses, that Kelvin Gastelum, even if he is losing a little bit, can't just full on rush in there because he'll get cut. The one time he did full on rush in, third round, he got dropped. And I cannot believe he did not get finished there. It's insane when you look at the amount of people. I mean, I've seen posts all over the place with the amount of people that Kelvin Gastelum has fought in the UFC. The list he's fought is incredible. The fact that he hasn't been finished by a TKO or a KO is incredible. I mean, he's fought the best. He's fought Israel Adesanya, Robert Whitaker, and now Jared Cannonier, 3 of the hardest hitting punchers, the most technical guys in the middleweight division. And yes, he's been dropped, but he still keeps coming back and coming forward. That's a true fighter right there. So props to Kelvin Gastelum, but Jared Cannonier coming off of this big war, he can learn from it a lot. I think he's going to be such an evolved fighter in his next fight, and he's one fight away from a title. So it's just so great to see. Great main event and absolutely delivered to the hype.
Yeah, no, I couldn't have put it any better myself right there. Jared Cannonier, I feel like evolved a lot from the last time we saw him fight into this fight right here. His footwork looked really good. He did a really good job of sticking and moving. You know, he would stop, he'd jab, he'd keep moving, he'd stop, he'd cross, he'd keep moving. Yeah, he had great head movement in the beginning rounds, and his takedown defense was awesome. I mean, we've seen Cannonier on his back, and it is not a place he wants to be. You know, he has a trouble time getting up, but from those takedown defenses and those stoppages, I'm seeing a whole new fighter out of this right here. On the other hand, with Kelvin Gastelum, he should not be disappointed in this performance. He did a fantastic job against a really tough competitor. But I think it's time for Kelvin Gastelum to finally move weight divisions. We've been begging for it. I think it'd be a fantastic job to just, you know, dip your toe in the waters of the welterweight division. I think he can get a pretty big name off the fight. He has big names under his card right now, and it'd be a great rejuvenation of his career, to say the least. I mean, everyone's been asking for it. Kelvin Gastelum, if you're listening, and you know what, and I could be the spokesperson right here, please move down a weight division, and you will do so much better. Only the fans only want you to do good. You know, we're all behind you right now, and what the fan is saying, you cannot stay at middleweight anymore.
Yeah, I couldn't have said that much better than either of you guys. I think you both summed that up perfectly. Jared Cannonier was incredibly impressive, and he's shown the capacity to evolve, which is a massive, massive factor in any fighter. To be able to only get taken down once by an elite wrestler in Kelvin Gastelum is a testament to the work Cannonier's putting in, and it's really showing dividends. There is no doubt about that, and he's going to be a major problem for anybody in the top 5. As for Kelvin Gastelum, I got to agree with my boy Hunter. I can't really say much more beyond that. But my problem comes within the practicalities of that. And what I mean is this. With the absolute greatest of respect in the world to Kelvin Gastelum, I'm a huge fan of his. If you're struggling to make the 185 limit, it's incredibly difficult to see how he's going to make the welterweight limit. 1 pound and 15 pounds, there's a world of difference between those two things. On a practical level, I'm in no disagreement whatsoever with both of you. He needs to go down to welterweight. He would actually have a physical advantage, or at least be equal to the fighters that he's facing. Whereas in middleweight, he's in a land of giants who have a 3-4 inch reach advantage over him and a huge power advantage too. So if Kelvin Gastelum can stay disciplined and make it to 170, he could be a very real issue for the top 5 there. I think he's got an unreal amount of heart, and for his displays at middleweight, a fight of the year against Adesanya, that fight against Cannonier, to name but 2, it shows that he is a championship caliber fighter, but he's definitely in the wrong division. Kelvin, if you are watching, listen to what Hunter just said and make it to 170.
Hey, you guys outlined it absolutely perfectly. I mean, starting with Hunter too. The thing is, though, I mean, and just like he was, it's just like the weight cut. He's got to be disciplined to do it. That's been the problem throughout his career, is the weight cut. Even for this fight at 185, which is You cannot excuse that. He came in originally 0.25 pounds overweight. Now he cut that and he made weight. Everything was great, but still, that did happen. I think if I'm Kelvin Gastelum right now, I listen to exactly what you guys just said, because you have what it takes. You have the skill level. It's just the physical size. Is what keeps breaking you down in those fights. I mean, Cannonier, I think that's really what it was. Cannonier was able to just take the center of the octagon and control the fight, land the bigger strikes and everything. And Kelvin Gastelum couldn't really do too much about it because he is just a physically smaller guy. If he gets a new nutritionist, gets someone, stays disciplined, do the Paul Felder route. It's a terrible way to go, but it is. You will get in shape. If you're always in shape, if you're always around that weight level, then cutting it is not terrible. If you don't get up to, I don't know how much he walks around at, but I would imagine it's close to 200 pounds. If Kelvin Gastelum is struggling to cut to 185, if he gets more disciplined and maybe he's walking around 180, only 10 pounds away from 170 or a little bit less than that, I mean, I think he could be a real menace at 170, just like you guys are saying, because he's in a weird spot. He's a little bit big for 170, but then a little too small for 185. He's in that weird in between range, which is why, honestly, there should be another weight class there, because it's just ridiculous. But that's another conversation for another day. I completely agree with you guys. If he gets a new nutrition, if he's disciplined, cuts down there, I mean, he could be really good. He could absolutely be really good. So great point, guys. And let's move on to another fun topic. We had a spinning wheel kick KO on the prelims that everybody was talking about. It was everywhere, as it should be. Edson Barbosa flashbacks we're all getting. It was incredible. Speaking of that finish, starting with Hunter, what's your short list for the best KOs of the year so far?
2021 has been filled with fantastic knockouts, as we discussed before on the podcast. But for me, I'm going to have to go with Keelan's boy, Corey Sandhagen, with the flying knee knockout over Frankie Edgar. Now, Frankie Edgar is one of the legends of the UFC. No one can deny that from him. He is one of the greatest lightweights of all time. Then he moved down to featherweight. Then he moved down to bantamweight. And he actually found success in all three weight divisions. And then he's coming up against Corey Sandhagen, one of the best fighters of the bantamweight division. And let me just say, there is a level of competition there. Bantamweight is one of the most entertaining weight divisions for a reason, and that is because Corey frickin' Sandhagen. Corey Sandhagen lands that flying knee and knocks out Frankie Edgar cold. It was one of the most gangster things I've ever seen in the UFC, I have to say. So my favorite knockout of the year so far is Corey Sandhagen.
Going from one cold knockout to another, we're going to the Nigerian nightmare Kamaru Usman and the vicious sledgehammer administered to Jorge Masvidal. I mean, dear God, there's very little I can say about this because we've all seen this and we all know how good it was. Jorge Masvidal was prancing around with his hands down, trying to get under Kamaru Usman's skin. He goes for the shot, he misses. What does Kamaru Usman do? Straight right down the pipe, and Jorge Masvidal's probably still asleep. That shot was beautiful. I genuinely think Jorge Masvidal is still in a cartoon days with birds spinning around his head because that shot was insane. I mean, the technique from Trevor Whitman that's been trained into putting this kind of punch together. I mean, just absolutely beautiful from Kamaru Usman. I mean, it's almost funny. We expected a knockout from Masvidal and boring wrestling from Kamaru Usman, and yet it was Usman that delivered the obliterating knockout to Masvidal when he didn't see it coming. And one of the things that really makes this knockout as amazing as it is, even though I absolutely adore my boy Corey Sandhagen, Hunter just told you that, the photo of Usman landing that shot, the water spraying everywhere, just... When we look back at Kamaru Usman's reign as welterweight champion, that is one of the iconic photos that will stand the test of time. I mean, we've got Lawler McDonald spitting blood. We've got McGregor Aldo. We've got loads of different photos, but this photo will stand the test of time, and it will tell the story of one of the most brilliantly brutal one-punch knockouts we've ever seen.
Yeah, if I could add on to that real quick.
Yeah.
Context behind that. Jorge Masvidal had never been knocked out until Kamaru Usman did that,
Yep.
which was honestly another gangster move. I got to say it. He was amazing.
That's hard for you to admit too, being such a Jorge
really
Masvidal
is.
fan. I mean,
Brought a tear to my eye while I was
no.
also screaming, "Oh my God!"
so much Masvidal slander coming in, but no, it's all Usman praise. It's all Usman praise. Yeah. Absolutely. So there's been too many good knockouts to just list. I mean, this we were just talking about before the podcast came on that Max Holloway versus Calvin Kattar was in 2021. How is that possible? There's been so many good fights, so many good knockouts. It's impossible to keep track of. It's the perfect time to be an MMA fan. I'm going to go with our guy, Yuri Prohazka, spinning elbow over Dominic Reyes. I mean, it was just the fight was insane. They realistically both knocked each other out in that fight in the second round with the up kick. Prohazka got knocked out and then woke himself back up whenever he landed on Reyes. Comes back up, they're swinging, lands that spinning back elbow, and Reyes just falls. And it was just so cold. Yuri Prohazka is one of our favorite fighters. I could probably say he's our favorite fighter on the podcast, one of the ones that we love to talk about all the time. And it's because of stuff like that. This guy comes into the UFC, knocks out Volkan Ozdemir. His second fight in the UFC is against top contender, just coming off of a title fight against the champ, Jan Blachowicz. And he goes out there and puts on one of the fights of the year, arguably the fight of the year to this point, lands a spinning back elbow, knocks him out cold. I mean, it was just unbelievable. Watching that fight, your jaws just dropped the entire time, nonstop action. And for it to end like that, it was a Yair Rodriguez elbow over Chan Sung Jung level moment because it was just an absolute war that ended in the perfect way possible. I loved every second of it. So big shout out to Yuri Prohazka, Kamaru Usman, and Hunter. What was yours? I'm blanking.
Corey Sandhagen.
And Corey Sandhagen, of course. I know I just killed both Keelan and Hunter because that's Keelan's guy too. I'm losing my mind. I'm having to keep track of all the other knockouts. And massive shout out to the spinning back kick. That was unbelievable to watch. And it was on the prelims. You made a name for yourself, and we will be watching more of your highlights very, very soon. So continuing our last segment, another very fun one. There's so many fights to book, so many matchups to make. There's already so many good matchups coming our way. But which matchup what do you think should be booked next? Hunter, what do you think?
Okay, so I was torn between the podcast started on this one, okay?
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with one for bantamweight and one for middleweight, all right? I'm going to start with bantamweight here. I'm going to go Sugar Sean O'Malley versus Dominic Cruz. We're talking about the GOAT versus the up-and-coming rising star right here. This fight right here could be sold like no other right now. This could be a main event. Honestly, it could be on a pay-per-view. It could be a co-main event. This could be a fight night main event. Dominic Cruz is one of the most entertaining fighters throughout any period of time we've seen him fight. He runs around the octagon. He has this unique style about him that makes him so enjoyable to watch. And Sean O'Malley, on the other hand, has been knocking out and finishing all of his opponents while also making a name for himself as one of the biggest superstars in the UFC currently. So to see these two clash would be absolutely amazing. And it's not like an insane call out, They've talked to each other on Twitter. Dominic Cruz is number 10 right now. So Sean O'Malley to get his fight into the ranked matches here would be amazing. It'd be stars aligning. It would be a once in a lifetime opportunity for me, at least, because these are two of my favorite fighters currently. And one that makes a little bit more sense here, I have to go up to middleweight, and I got to go Jared Cannonier versus the winner of the Darren Till or Derek Brunson fight. I think that just makes sense. I was thinking about doing either Paulo Costa and Marvin Vettori, but I also want to spread out the rankings here because we don't want two back-to-back, within the top five ranked middleweights here. So I'm going to spread it out with the I think 6 and 8 ranked middleweights, or 5 and 8 ranked middleweight, or 5 or 7. I don't remember off the top of my head, but this would be an amazing fight either way. Jared Cannonier looked absolutely amazing in his last fight, and I want Darren Till to win. I'm going to say that right now because Darren Till is one of the most fun fighters to watch just because the way he builds up to the fight and the way he delivers. He's a huge man, especially when he used to be competing at welterweight. Now he's at middleweight where I think everyone thinks he belongs. And he had a great fight against Robert Whittaker. So I can't wait to see him back in the octagon again. And hopefully, if he does win, Jared Cannonier, Darren Till will be an absolute banger of a slugfest.
I have a few that I'm torn between. And I'm trying to pick which one. I might just have to give you them all because I just think that
lay it out there. Lay it out there.
The first one that I'm going to say is quite unorthodox, and we're going to the welterweight division for this one. I mean, no real shock. It's Kamaru Usman, but it's his opponent who's a bit of a surprise. It's my guy Vicente Luque. Yeah. And I think this would be a great fight because I think Vicente Luque is such a well-rounded opponent that he could be a massive problem for Kamaru Usman. we know welterweight's a division dominated by wrestlers and jiu-jitsu practitioners. There's very few elite strikers that occupy the ranks at welterweight, and Vicente Luque is probably the best of them right now at this moment. With such a specialist in kickboxing and a guy who can submit a black belt in jiu-jitsu, you're looking at probably the most well-rounded threat to someone like Kamaru Usman. So that's a fight I would absolutely love to see, and I think it is one that's worthy of happening. I mean, Kamaru wants it, Vicente wants it, the fans want it. Let's make it happen. Next, we're going to the heavyweight division, and it's going to be my boy Cyril Gane against Francis Ngannou.
Okay, that's a given, though. I mean, come on.
That's
literally next.
Yeah, I'm not going to spend too much time on that one because we all know why that is going to happen. But I'm just going to say that is the fight that I want to happen there.
100%.
And then we're going back down slightly to 205, and it's going to be Jiri Prochazka and Jan Blachowicz. That is just some Eastern European slanging and banging right there, ladies and gentlemen. Violence personified. The elbows of Prochazka, the Polish power of Blachowicz. I mean, the poster writes itself, doesn't it? It just does. And that would just be a fight of the year right there. And I think if Prochazka won, you'd be seeing the next light heavyweight champion probably for a decade or more. I think he is that skilled. My last one that I'm going to say really quickly is a bit of a wild card because it's not in the UFC.
Sure.
But I'm going to tell you who it is. It's Anthony Rumble Johnson and Yoel Romero.
Ooh.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
We
got to make that happen.
We need to see that.
They got to make that happen.
And, again, I don't have to tell you why we need to see that because that would be like, I mean, I can't even think of a metaphor to describe how insane that fight would be.
Symphony of violence. Boom. I got you.
Symphony of violence. I love it, Hunter. We should be doing the posters for these events.
I mean, what are we doing this?
Marketplace. We're here.
Hey, you heard us. But yeah, that's the fight outside the UFC I really want to see. I just think there's so many events. I can't wait to hear what Jack says.
Guys, this is so exciting. We do this almost every podcast. We get so hyped up for all these fights. They need to happen.
These are realistic, though.
That's what I'm saying. These are realistic. These could happen, this is good excitement. Let's get it going. So first thing, I am going to stick in the light heavyweight division, and I'm going to stick with our guy Jiri Prochazka. And I'm going to go him against, let's say, the Jan Blachowicz versus Glovic Sheriff fight takes a while to develop and play out. Jiri is a guy that would probably like to fight again, although I would love to make the argument, and I have made the argument, we've all made the argument that he should be above this person if the next title shot came around. But I say match him up and then have him fight. Why not? Jiri Prochazka versus Alexander Rakic for the number one contender fight. Now, we all don't we all have our problems with Alexander Rakic. We've made that known on the podcast. Sorry if you do listen to this, but I mean we have made our opinions clear. Jiri Prochazka, it's like kind of both ends of the spectrum. This fight is so fascinating because Jiri would force Alexander Rakic to actually get in a slugfest. This is what Alexander Rakic used to do in his career. Thiago Santos didn't do that. They both kind of stood back. But Jiri Prochazka's style, he will not care for anyone. Dominic Reyes is one of the most talented strikers in that division. He did not care. He went right forward and went right at him. He's not going to care about Alexander Rakic. He's going to disrespect his power and go forward. Alexander Rakic is going to have to do that. Now, whenever that fight does happen, that's going to be an absolute war. And the thing is that's interesting, if Alexander Rakic can Alexander Rakic clip back into what he used to be whenever he was knocking everybody out left and right, or will it take him a second to get back to that? Because if it takes him a second to get back to that, just like we saw with Tyron Woodley whenever he was champion, he took a foot off the gas pedal and kind of defended as the champ. But then once he became the contender again, he didn't really know how to fight as the contender again. If Rakic has that happen to him, he's in real trouble with Jiri Prochazka. So he needs to get his mindset ready for that absolute war that will happen, because if he's not ready for that, Jiri takes it just like that. I think that's such a fascinating matchup that I think no matter what happens in the light heavyweight division, I think we're going to see at some point, whether if Jiri's the champion or if Jiri's coming of a loss to Jan Blachowicz, or if Rakic is waiting for a fight. I think it'll happen eventually. And that matchup is just so fascinating as far as all the dynamics of it. I would love to see it. So one of the first things I put down here also involves one of Hunter's guys that he picked, and Dominic Cruz. Now, I would be absolutely all for the Sean O'Malley Dominic Cruz fight. In fact, I would love that, and I love that shout. But one that I would also absolutely love to see is a matchup between arguably the GOAT at featherweight and the GOAT at bantamweight, Jose Aldo versus Dominic Cruz is my next little shout that I'm doing here. I think that would just be such a good fight. I know ranking wise they're a little bit far apart, but Dominic Cruz is still, whenever you see him fight, he's still one of the trickiest guys to break down. And Jose Aldo, despite his age, despite everything that's going on, he is still out there getting wins. He beat my guy Pedro Munoz, which completes the circle of all of our rankings being destroyed in bantamweight. We got to erase that episode, by the way.
We start again.
Yeah, exactly. We got to do a new one, but that fight would be so good. I mean, Jose Aldo chopping at the legs. How would Dominic Cruz handle the movement of Jose Aldo? It would just be a clash of two different worlds, still doing amazing in a different time in a new weight division. I would love to see it, and throw it on as a main event of a fight night, and you get everybody watching. I would absolutely love to see that.
That would be great. That would be great. I have one more. Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
You guys both had a Yuri Prochazka one, so I'm gonna throw one in real quick. Yuri Prochazka versus Johnny Walker. Now, This is if Johnny Walker beats Thiago Santos come September 25th, but this fight would be absolute fireworks. We've talked about Johnny Walker in the light heavyweight division here, and he is the closest it comes to even matching Yuri Prochazka's output and energy, other than Dominic Reyes, I'd say. When it comes to UFC 2 or to the 205 weight division here, this is the fight that would absolutely destroy UFC light heavyweight pay-per-view records here. Say Yuri Prochazka comes champion in like a year or two, whatever it takes, and he becomes champion in the future. And Johnny Walker makes his way back up. This fight would be so profitable, it would be insane.
I have one more as well, actually, and I have one that will be fight of the year.
Oh,
it's better than any fight anybody can think of. In the red corner, down at featherweight, by the way, just to give everyone a little bit of context.
We're hyping it up to we're starting in the red corner. We're not even going at it. We're going in the red corner. I love it. Let's go.
In the red corner, fighting out of Honolulu, Hawaii, we have Max Holloway.
Okay.
And in the blue corner, we have Edson Barbosa.
Oh, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, you want violence personified. You want a pool of blood at the end of 25 minutes. You've got it. You have got two of the best featherweights on planet Earth right now. The leg kicks, the body kicks, the boxing, the counter boxing, the stamina, the pressure. You have got it all there. That would be fight of the year. In fact, I'd bet damn near anything that would be fight of the year. Max Holloway, best featherweight in the planet for me right now. Definitely the best boxer in the UFC. Shout out that quote against Calvin Kattar. And Edson Barbosa, dear God, how good does Edson Barbosa look at 145? He looks like a brand new fighter down in that division. I think you put those two together, you've got one of the best cards of the year by itself in that already.
Oh, for sure. Here, I have to do one more too, right? So in the red corner, we have Edson Barbosa. In the blue corner, we have Giga Chikadze. Oh, wait, no, that's next week. Next week. Oh, my gosh. That is going to be phenomenal. I'm just saying. I know we've been talking about Giga Chikadze and Edson Barbosa. We have select favorite fighters that are just wild and insane on this podcast, and those are two of our favorites going at it. So you know it's going to be absolute fireworks. Talk about fight of the year. I mean, every fight's fight of the year. Look at what we're doing. Any fight with Yuri Prochazka is going to be fight of the year. It doesn't matter who he's fighting. He's going to be fight of the year. Barbosa is going to be up there for fight of the year. Giga Chikadze is going to bring it. I mean, Max Holloway is going to bring it. It's just, it's so exciting. I know this isn't even one of our topics, but I'm so excited for that fight. And it's next week. I cannot believe it snuck up on us. We had a pay-per-view, we had a couple fight nights, and now it's here. Oh man. I'm so happy that's a fight night too. I mean, everybody's going to get to see it. They're going to put a showcase on. And yeah, all of these fights could potentially be one of the best fights ever. I love it. We say this after every podcast, but it's just such a good time if you are not into MMA to get into MMA, because every week we're seeing, I mean, after this next week, right? We just had Gastelum Cannonier. We're going to have Giga Chikadze, Edson Barbosa. Then the following week, we're having Brunson versus Till. I mean, this is ridiculous. These are fight nights. And then after that, I think there's one more fight night. I'm not exactly sure who's headlining. I think it's Anthony Smith, maybe. And then we have 266, which Hunter is going to. I mean, we're just dropping that right now. It's gonna be awesome. Diaz is back. We got Shevchenko, Brian Ortega versus Volkanovski. I mean, just so many good fights. Get into MMA right now if you're not. We have fights you can listen, you can watch to and everything. It's such a great time to get into it. And hey, phenomenal podcast as always, guys. So As always, everybody, thank you so much for listening. Please make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube. Listen to us everywhere, literally everywhere, including iTunes and Spotify. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at MMA.island and our website, MMAisland.net. And a big shout out to our sponsors, BetUS. If you're going to bet through them, bet through them because it's the way to go. They have everything you need there. BetUS, check them out. As always, everyone, thank you so much for listening. Great podcast, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.